Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back to Unbottled Potential. Amanda here. And today we are going to be discussing the root of why you drink. And this is such an important topic because in my 5 years, 5+ years as a coach in the elective sobriety space, I have worked with a lot of women who are ready to quit drinking and they are ready to start living a new lifestyle. And they've maybe tried a lot of different approaches. Maybe they've tried courses or programs with other practitioners and they have tried moderation and they've tried, dry January, sober October, quick fixes, cleanses, whatever you name it. They've tried it. And sometimes it just hasn't really clicked. And one of the reasons is that often we try to just sobriety our way to sobriety or abstain our way to sobriety. And while abstaining from alcohol for any period of time is absolutely going to do you some massive health, financial, intellectual, spiritual favors, unless you really dig in and get to the root of why you drink alcohol, when those root causes start to show back up in your life, as they inevitably will, if you have not figured out what they are and given yourself some tools to kind of resource yourself to be ready for that, what is very likely going to happen is that you are going to stumble and fall and go right back to your old habits because alcohol is at its core a self-soothing mechanism. It is a crutch and we use it as such. And so we need to learn the areas in which we are weak and give ourselves resources in order to be able to perform better and more confidently in those areas. And so many programs and so many approaches discount our need to really understand the root of why we drink in the first place. Now, this is void of any, obviously we can't, and I'm not going to, I'm not going to because it is not ethically sound for me to go back to like your big T or little t traumas. But what we can do is go back to the most obvious and central roots that occur in most people who drink. So today, what I would like to do is guide you through an exercise. So I would love if you can be super attentive and have some time to sit down actually with a sheet of paper and do this exercise at some point for yourself, because I want you to get at these reasons for you. And this is going to be most productive if you don't just intellectualize what I'm sharing with you, but if you actually actualize it and do the exercise. So today I want to share an exercise that I use with my clients, I use with my students to kind of help understand that core reason why you turn to alcohol every single time. And this is true across the board. And so I've narrowed it down to two main reasons, and I want to help you get at those and also give you some resources and tools for what you can do once you've identified the reasons why you drink. So let's get to it. Now, I want to be very clear that, again, we are not going to go all the way back to initial traumas that may have caused this propensity to turn to alcohol, because very often there are some childhood woundings or other traumas that really can flare up our desire to drink or our need to escape. And so if you are suffering from something and you're pretty sure that it goes back to a trauma that you were using alcohol to escape from, I just want to take a moment to honor you and encourage you to get the therapeutic support that you need. Of course, coaching can help with that. But if you are dealing with trying to unravel the very, very complicated strings of big T or little t traumas over your lifetime that have caused you to desire to numb out, I just want to remind you that there are so many therapeutic modalities available to you in addition to traditional talk therapy, which I know many of you have possibly tried. I just want to go on a tangent and remind you that there are other resources available. If you feel like you've done something before and it hasn't been particularly helpful, there are so many other modalities out there, even just in therapy, that you could implement in order to get at that. And I really, really, really want you to have the support that you need. So take what I say with a grain of salt, knowing that if you have underlying bigger traumas, that I want you to get that support so that you can really feel grounded and capable and whole and safe in your body at all times, to where you do not need alcohol to escape. Because while everything I share today is so important, if you have been using alcohol as the only safety resource that you know, to keep yourself from causing other self-harm because you are in some sort of, fight, flight, just trauma response, I really just want to honor that and let you know that that's okay. And that you will get to a point, if you get the proper help and support that you need, where you can complete the rest of this exercise and have it really make sense. So void of working through any bigger traumas, this is what I would have you do. So moving on. This is really important because this is something that really could help anyone who drinks, but this is really targeted. This exercise that I'm going to share today is really targeted towards people who drink in the gray area. So you are not drinking at the level where you might need addiction and recovery support, but you're also not drinking every now and again, just having a sip of wine here or there. Usually this exercise doesn't super resonate with those people because they're not looking for a change in their relationship with alcohol because they're okay with the way in which they drink. The every now and again drinkers, that is. So the exercise that I'm going to guide you through is called the more or less list. And if you are in a place where you can actually get out a sheet of paper and begin this exercise right now, I would encourage you to do so. If not, just listen along and then pop back and do this later. It's easy enough to complete. And the way that I like to start this list is I like you to just take a sheet of paper and fold it in half to where you create two columns. In grade school, that's called hot dog style. So fold it in half to create two long columns. And in one column, I'd like you to write the sentence, I believe alcohol helps me become more. And then what we'll do is make some bullet lists. In the column on the right, I want you to write the sentence, I feel alcohol helps me to be less, and we'll complete those sentences. So as we go through this exercise, one of the guardrails I find to be super helpful is to just really sit with, when you go out, why are you really drinking? And so often we say, oh, it's because I like the taste or the experience, or, it's a social communal thing. And yes, however, if it was just about that, then you'd be fine drinking orange juice or just regular water. There is always an underlying reason why we choose to use something that has a social or emotional lubrication factor. And so this exercise is to help you really get real with what is the sneaky payoff you're getting from drinking alcohol versus just being in these situations. And there is always a sneaky payoff. So on the more list, I believe alcohol helps me to be more. I want you to start thinking of the social characteristics specifically that you use alcohol to exaggerate. So on my list, it might be, I believe alcohol helps me to become more outgoing, to become more sexy, to become more seductive and flirtatious. And most of these are going to be social factors that I'm trying to become more of. I'm trying to become more socially acceptable, essentially. And these are things that I've really sat down to think about for myself, because when I started drinking, I had this vision that it was going to help me become this Carrie Bradshaw type, this outgoing, vivacious, successful, flirtatious woman who was out in the crowd socializing all the time and had men fawning over her. And because I saw that represented in the media and I saw that represented in some people who I maybe admired or were jealous of, I thought, okay, alcohol is my key to become more of all of these things that I believe that I am not. And so I was always using alcohol to become bigger and better and bolder, or at least to become comfortable and feel it was permissible for me to turn up the volume on some of my more outgoing characteristics. Because for me, I was a late bloomer. I was an ugly duckling. I was a not cool kid trying to hang out with the cool kids. And I didn't really feel that I had the permission to be outgoing at some of the level. I didn't feel confident enough, in other words, to be outgoing at some of the levels I wanted to be. And when alcohol came into the picture, it kind of turned down the volume on that voice that said, fade into the background. You don't deserve to be here. You don't belong to be here. And I was able to come out of my shell quite a bit. So I would actually say that I'm grateful for alcohol in that sense, but those skills did not transfer, because when I stopped drinking, I did not feel more confident or outgoing or sexy or flirtatious. And if alcohol would actually have worked to make me feel more of those things, then on the other side, I would have been more of them in every aspect, but it didn't. So I was using it as a social lubricant or a social crutch or bandage. And I want you to get really real with yourself. What are you trying to become more of? How are you trying to become more socially acceptable, more whatever when you drink alcohol? All right. So take some time and really, really get granular with the different reasons in which you drink to become more of something. And it might not be the same, and it probably isn't the same every time and in every situation. So you really will need to go back to different situations as to why you drink in those specific environments or elements. All right. Now, on the other side of the paper, you have that I feel alcohol helps me to be less. column. And while you're using this prompt, while you're writing out the bullets, I want you to lean more into specifically how you use alcohol as an emotional crutch. Because what we do is we use alcohol to turn down the volume on emotions and ways of being that we feel are impermissible or are not socially acceptable. So I used alcohol to be less anxious, to be less afraid, to be less emotional in general, to be less angry, um, squeamish is the word that's coming to mind, but I used it quite often to kind of be able to start conversations that I was nervous to start, I guess. So to be less nervous, anxious, all of these things that make us feel maybe that we are not okay, that we're less than, or that emotions and ways of being that we are afraid to bring forth. And so in order to dull those emotions down, because we don't know how to handle them, what do we do but turn to alcohol? And this could even go broader. So I use it to be less heartbroken, less angry, less frustrated. How often do we after a tremendously emotional moment, use alcohol to turn down the volume on emotions that are big and bold and overwhelming, right? We use it after a hard day's work, after a long week, after someone pisses us off, after someone dumps us, after something really sad or emotional happens. And when we do this, what we are doing is actually taking away our ability to work through those emotions, right? Unfortunately, as I've shared many times, most of us were not given the tools to deal with big emotions. Most of us, especially women, were told to, stuff them down, put on a smile, keep going. And that is not productive because emotions that are repressed in our system start to calcify and then create disease and dis-ease. And so I really want you to take a good look at the specific emotions if you're being honest with yourself, that you frequently avoid. So this is going to be, if you are a nightly kind of wind down drinker, a 5 o'clock drinker, what are the emotions that you are trying to avoid or lessen when you're drinking? Or if there's specific weekly scenarios when you find yourself saying, I deserve a drink because of X, Y, Z, I want you to really lean into those and be very honest. What are you trying to feel less of when you drink? What emotions are you trying to feel less of? All right. Now, once you have this list, you have some great news. Now you have the laundry list of the areas in which you've stunted your social and emotional growth, where you've been cheating to either exaggerate or downplay characteristics and skills that you can actually build yourself. You have just been cheating. And again, we realize this because if you were not cheating, then on the other side of alcohol, you'd be able to perform these social skills and embrace these emotions on your own. And most of us are not. So I just want to be very clear that I work with a lot of super high achieving women who are able to perform in many social environments, but there are, or many professional social environments. But then when it comes to intimate, more vulnerable, platonic social environments, that's where they struggle. And so having confidence in one area doesn't mean that you cannot have low self-esteem in others. I want to be very clear there. And being competent and capable and someone who looks like they have their shit all together doesn't mean that you don't still hide from your emotions. Again, I work with very, very capable, competent women who still really struggle and want to dilute, escape, get out of a specific mindset. And alcohol has been their tool to do so. And they can't fathom a way out of it, even though they are so incredibly intelligent and capable and high achieving in their lives. So I just really want to normalize that there is nothing wrong with you. If you have been using, because you have been using more likely alcohol as a social lubricant or an emotional crutch. Okay. So now we're at this space where we have all of these lists of places where we have stunted our growth, and now we get to start working those muscles again. And it's important that you find guides and tools and situations and processes by which you can start to slowly flex those muscles and gain the confidence that you need to be as outgoing as you want to be. That doesn't mean you have to turn into a social butterfly or go against your native come from if you're an introvert, but what tools can you utilize to make socializing work for you? What tools can you utilize to make flirtation and, whatever it was that you're trying to become more of work for you in your life? How can we amp up that skill to a level that feels good for you, that feels authentic and congruent? We don't want you to put on a facade right? But we want to find the way of authentically relating to others in social situations that feels great for you. And that might mean, my friends, that might mean giving you a permission slip to do socializing differently than you've ever done it before. That is one of the special skills that I share with my clients, is giving them permission slips to, hey, maybe you were drinking because these social situations actually don't work for you and you were trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So let's actually go find the social situations that really, really jive with you. Might they be fewer and further between and a little more difficult to find? Yeah. But guess what? I'm really good at helping you niche down and find those social circles and social situations. So we can manipulate your reality to now fit this new way of being that is actually more productive and more aligned with your authentic come from, versus trying to fit you into a mold that someone else told you was acceptable. Right. And we can also resource you because we know that sometimes you're going to have to go out and go into social settings where alcohol is present, or in social situations that aren't the best match for you, but you need to be at these things, or you want to be at these things to support others or to celebrate others. And we can give you tools to flex the muscle to tolerate and even thrive in those situations. Okay. Now, on the other hand, with the emotional scale, this is even a little more challenging because it can be, you can avoid a lot of social situations basically, but you can't effectively run from your emotions. You can run from them, but you cannot effectively run from them. And let me share one of my favorite analogies. Like basically, alcohol is it is a pickling agent, right? I have a lot of tinctures that have little drops of brandy in it to preserve the tincture. And what we do when we drink alcohol is we preserve or pickle our emotions, our negative emotions, and we keep them in our body. So it is essentially when we have a negative emotion come up, like anger or rage or sadness or grief or frustration, whatever it is that you've been using drinking to avoid. What we do when we put alcohol into the system is we don't get rid of those problems. Oh no, we just pickle them and preserve them in our body. And my friends, we do not want to be pickling and preserving negative, nasty emotions. We want resources and outlets to process them. Okay. Because again, pickled up emotions, bottled emotions in your nervous system create anxiety, disease, depression, immunodeficiencies, other really nasty and unnecessary things in your life that while yes, there might be some other causes for them, why not at least eliminate one cause, which is you simply not dealing with the emotion? Okay. If you want more on this, I really suggest you look into Louise Hay's work. Louise Hay, by the way, let me just say that a little more clearly. She has a beautiful book called You Can Heal Your Life, and it really talks all about how we fail to process our emotions and how they can turn into these little nasties within our bodies. They can turn into physical, emotional, and other pain and manifestations that we don't really want around. So one of the most essential processes you can go through as you are changing your relationship with alcohol is getting very clear on the emotions that you feel ill-equipped to process, and start to work through actually processing them, not finding another tool to escape them. Because so often what I hear my clients do, which this is more productive, but not quite where we want to get to, they find another form of escapism. So some of that is sometimes something like scrolling social media, eating, binge eating, not just eating, binge eating, checking out with television, or starting arguments with their partner, or even exercising. Over exercising can be a way that we try to escape these emotionally intense moments. And what I want to do, my job as a coach, my goal is to give you tools to actually stop, be with those emotions, not make them bad or wrong or embarrassing or shameful or inconvenient, but to stop and be with those emotions and say, I got you. I got you. I know how to process you. I know how to be with this, because guess what? I do not want to put this emotion in my backpack and carry it around. I do not want the weight of this emotion coming with me. So I'm going to stop right now and process this emotion so that I'm not pickling it in my system and preserving it for later. Because y'all know what happens when you drink to cover up an emotion. What typically happens is the next day it flares back up, and with even more vigor than it was the day before, because now you're anxious and you are hungover, if even just a little, and your nervous system has even fewer skills to cope with the emotion. So it tends to come back in even more force the next day. And what we want to do is to prevent that. and to give you the tools that you need that maybe you did not get, that you probably did not get in childhood and adolescence. And this is such an important process of the alcohol-free, elective sobriety, traditional sobriety journey that a lot of people shy away from because it is difficult. And even myself, even in moments where I have trained myself so well, I have found myself avoiding and conveniently forgetting about some of the tools I have. Even recently, I was having a week where I felt really anxious. And I messaged one of my friends, Courtney, and I said, girl, I'm just feeling like really like this today. And she said, have you used your tools? And then she reminded me of 4 core tools that I already know. I have them in my toolbox, kids. And I had kind of like been a little brat and refused to use them. I just was trying to muscle through instead of pausing and saying, wait a second, I need to deal with this right now, because if not, I'm just going to carry anxiety with me through my day. And that's not helpful. And so often we do get stubborn and we do forget. So it's really important to have someone to help you get over your own BS. And in my coaching practice, I'm laughing because yesterday I was on the, I'm smiling. I'm not laughing. Well, not I'm laughing. I was on the phone with one of my clients and I say, I'm here to help you through your BS. And sometimes BS is your own bullshit, your own excuses, your own stubbornnesses, and your own places where you just turn into this little brat that you don't want to. And so you stomp your feet and you're like, I don't want to use those tools. And sometimes it's to get you through your own blind spots. So BS stands for bullshit and blind spots because it's also a place where you can't see what's happening. You are so inundated with your anxiety, with your shame, with your guilt, with your sadness, with your heartbreak, with your grief, whatever it is, that you can't see the forest through the trees. And the job of a coach or even a therapist sometimes is to help you get out of your own head and see what is right there in front of you, see some very obvious and easy solutions that you're just failing to implement. And having someone on your team to root for you and see this is one of the most productive things that you can do. I almost always have either a coach or a therapist or both that I am working with, because I know that, as they say, you cannot perform your own brain surgery. I can see so many pieces of bullshit and so many pieces of blind spots for my own clients and my friends. I can see them. It is one of my best skills. I can see them in a minute and I can reframe it for them so that they can understand where they missed the mark, where they got caught up. Yet I cannot do it for myself. I will not tell you the number of times I have been caught in a situation that I have coached many people through, just because you get caught in your own little internal story. You get caught in your own world. So I am so grateful for my coaches and my therapists and my friends who are able to help me pause and get out of that situation. So if I could make any recommendation as you were going through these lists, as you were going through realizing, okay, I actually have some shortcomings. I have some areas where I don't know how to get along in life socially and emotionally. Do yourself a favor and find someone who has figured those things out and have them teach you. So many people are resistant, especially in the sobriety space, to getting coaching. And the coaching isn't that you are admitting defeat over alcohol, right? That is a whole nother process. You are saying, I realize alcohol has gotten in the way of me learning how to do some things productively and optimally. And so what I would like to do is I'd like to have someone hold me accountable for getting alcohol out of the way. But even more than that, I need someone to hold me accountable for getting the skills that I need and helping me, even directing me towards ways in which I can develop those skills and flex that muscle so that when the social or emotional situation comes up, I already know how to do it, right? This is what we are training for. This is what in my mind, a strong coach will do, is they are going to help you reorient your lifestyle, reorient your way of being so that you don't feel that your growth is stunted, so that when those root causes come up, the social and emotional situations that have caused you to drink in the past, that now you're like, wait a second, I am powerful as fuck and I've got this. I don't need alcohol to get me through this situation because now I've figured out the skill set. I've figured out the way that works for me to actually get through this. And let me tell you what, friends, when you hit that moment, you will feel like such a badass. And when you are sitting in a moment realizing, oh my God, a past version of me would have drank in this situation, but shit, I've got this. I know what to do. I'm choosing to do things differently. There is nothing more powerful. And that is why personally, I choose not to drink anymore. It's because I mean, not, that's not all the reasons, but I feel so powerful in being able to actually do things on my own that I thought I couldn't do before, that now I'm just in this world where I feel so capable and so resourced that there is no place, there is no need, there is no reason, there is no allure and no seductive element to alcohol at all. Because now I realize why I was really keeping it around. And it's not because of the fun factor or the social factor. It's because I felt deficient in areas of my life. And now that I do not feel deficient in those, I don't need alcohol. I don't need the cheat sheet. I don't need it at all. I know the answers. Now, does that mean that I always know the answers or I never feel uncomfortable? Absolutely not. There are still social and emotional situations where I feel out of place or overwhelmed. Just this past weekend, I was at a party where I didn't know very many people, and there was this one lull of a moment where I had ended one conversation and hadn't started another one yet. And I looked around and I'm like, I don't know anyone. I'm going to have to go approach a stranger. Cool. Or I could leave. And let me tell you what, I almost left. I almost just decided I'm going to leave right now. I'm just going to jet. And then I said, nope, Amanda, you've got this. You've got this. You can go up and do something. You can use that skill that feels a little uncomfortable and a little of a stretch for you, but you can stretch and you're going to feel so much better if you stretch than if you just stayed stagnant. And guess what? I did. And I made a new really rad friend who I will probably introduce you all to at some point. So I just want you to know that even me doing this for 7 years and being a teacher of these skills, I still get tripped up. I still have a coach. I still have therapists. I still have friends who are on the emergency call list to help me recalibrate when I cannot see my own shit. And I want you to have that too. And the first step is really just being willing to be vulnerable and say, you know what? I am just where I'm supposed to be, but there's still areas where I can work. There are still areas where I can improve and flex my muscles where I've been cheating. And I want to do that. So I hope today that making this list, this more or less list, has turned you on to some of the root causes, some of the root reasons why you drink, and helped you to understand some different areas in which you have stunted your growth and you have some potential to grow and resource yourself. Of course, I'm not able to go into all of the resources that you could use in this episode, but if you want to reach out to me, I am at Amanda Kuda on Instagram, or you can find me on my website, and maybe we could work together, or maybe I have some tools to direct you to. Maybe I have a program coming up, depending upon when you're listening to this. Right now, I am running my Stop Drinking, Start Manifesting program, which is actually really excellent to help you get started in this area. And one of the most transformational tools and skills I teach and I've had in my own life is a simple spiritual practice, because it has helped me shift my perception and understand these struggle points in a different way. And so if that resonates with you, that program is probably something you can still jump into. So DM me or check it out on my website. I think that many of you will really resonate with that program, especially if you are on a spiritual path and hoping and believing in spiritual solutions to your struggles. They are always available. And that is one of my best tools to offer you. So I hope that going through this list has opened your eyes to realize that, hey, this habit in my life has really freaking cut me off from achieving my true potential. It's cut me off from being able to express myself socially in a way that feels good and authentic to me. And it's cut me off from being able to express my emotions. And while that might feel scary or so many other things, even unnecessary, depending upon how you grew up, or impermissible, I want you to know that you are capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for. You can absolutely build a social life and social tools that help you thrive no matter what shortcoming you've convinced yourself you have. And you can also create and develop emotional tools that will help you overcome and be present to and process any emotional situation that is dealt to you. I truly believe that things are put in our path because they are supposed to be there. And you absolutely would not be able to have an emotional experience within your body if it was not something your body could handle. Now, of course, this is void of any sort of psychological diagnoses, but it just emotions like pain, grief, anger, frustration, those were put in your body for a reason. Those were put in your body to be processed and felt. And I want to give you the tools to stop denying your ability to do that, because you would not have been given those emotions if you did not have the tools and the capability to process them. We just need to reorient you, help you unlearn some bad habits and relearn some better ones. So I am rooting for you in this process. I am rooting for your expression of your potential. I am rooting for you to actually develop the social and emotional skills that you need and deserve to live a really kick-ass, thriving life. And I want you to get there, because from that point, alcohol truly will become insignificant. And if this resonated with you today, there's more information in the show notes about potentially working with me. This is my favorite work to do. I'm so honored to be a guide and a mentor to women and some men. I'm starting to take on a few male clients here and there, but mostly women who are ready to step into their truest potential. And I truly believe that until you learn to overcome these stumbling blocks and catch up in the areas where you've stunted your growth, that it will be a little difficult for you. So I want it to be as easy as possible. And we're in this together. I hope to be able to work with you or collaborate or support you in some way outside of this podcast sometime soon. And I hope, though, that you will tune in next week. We'll see you then. Take care.